Hello and welcome to the AI Game Changers podcast. Today I'm speaking to a dude who I've randomly found on LinkedIn when I was searching for cool companies that are using computer vision for something that isn't autonomous driving. And I stumbled across a company called Jedsy who are building autonomous drones that are powered by computer vision for really cool use cases like healthcare, emergency services, and sustainable courier services. So Herbert is a entrepreneur and aerospace engineer, and his career has been really cool. He's done a lot for Red Bull Air Racing. He was also he was the CEO and one of the founders of the Drone Champions League. And then, very recently, 2 years ago, he set up Jedsy in the midst of the pandemic, no less. What a cool guy. And when I saw his profile and I saw what he's doing at Jedsy and how they're using computer vision to enable all of this, I just had to drop him a line. So I hope you enjoy today's conversation. We dive into Herbert's background, what the guys are doing at Jedsy, and ultimately how they're using computer vision to make the world a little bit better of a place through the use of drone technology. So, if you've never heard of them, definitely go and check them out. But I hope you enjoy today's episode. And as always, guys, let me know your thoughts.
Welcome to the AI Game Changers podcast with Luke Whips.
I guess the first kind of like starting point is if we can kind of go back right to the beginning and how you got into drones and where it all started for you and the original kind of storyline. And then, as I say, we can kind of just roll from there and go from there.
Of course. All right. Thanks for having me. Aviation has been my passion ever since I can remember. I started model air flying on a very young age. Was actually very active in sports. I was playing tennis professionally, and my hobby was always, on the model airfield. And then when I had a pretty bad injury on the elbow, I decided to quit. And then it was clear, okay, I want to do something in aviation. And with 17, I then joined the higher technical school for aviation, did the pilot license, did the glider license, did aerobatics, lots of aerobatics actually. And then also came to the university in Munich for space and aviation engineering. And there, obviously, I had the first touch point with drones, did my first flight controller, was a very cool time. And after university, I immediately started basically the first company called Drone Champions League, where we organized drone races all around the world. For example, we had a race on the Champs-Élysées in Paris with 300,000 spectators. And people could actually qualify for real life events. So it was kind of the first hybrid sport. And obviously at this time, we were very close to all those drone delivery companies because, as a drone racing, you kind of are also looking into the latest technology on the market. And so it naturally came out that I think there's, really believe there is something missing. And I always thought getting a package delivered into the garden is actually kind of a step back of what we're used today, right? So nowadays you get the package to the doorstep, under the roof, when you're not at home and so on. And so I always thought, okay, this has to be changed. And also in terms of, costs, there had to be big change to make it scale, especially on the courier service side. And so that was kind of, it took some time and filed the first patent Didn't expect a lot on that, but then received the feedback that we will get it. And so that was kind of the starting point to say, okay, let's focus on delivery. And then I sold my shares on DCL and started Jedsy.
Yeah, I was. I was watching some videos of DCL last night, and they're insane. Is it all so? The Drone Champions League, is it all virtual, or they do the real live drone races as well, or is it a combination of the two?
I mean, it was definitely a combination of the two until COVID started. And that was exactly the time where I then sold my shares and started Jedsy. And, they kept doing the virtual drone races during the COVID time. And now this year, I'm not sure, probably they do the first real event again this year.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast last week as well, and he mentioned about one of these drones that can do like 0 to 200 kilometers an hour in like a second or something like that. And I watched the video of it. And I was like, "Shit, that is insanely quick." I don't know if it's actually. It looks so fast that I was like, "Is that real? Is that actually real?"
It is. It is real.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. The performance of those drones nowadays is really insane. And I think package them into, a product which is awesome and really fulfills a purpose, which in our case, the mission is, delivery when it matters. Delivery when it matters means, for the people. So especially when there is urgency, when people need medicine, when, stuff like that. But also for the environment, we believe there's so many deliveries done from a 2.5 ton car, delivering a 1 kilogram package, and he drove like 10 kilometers in, back and forth. And so that makes no sense. And I think we need to become more efficient, and drones can be, especially on the courier service side, much more efficient than it is done now. I'm not talking about like the Amazon package, where the post driver has like 200 packages in the trunk. So that's already super efficient. It's really the courier service, the guy who drives one package from A to B directly.
Can I hear the drones in the background, by the way?
Yeah, actually, they're just.
Honestly, Herbert, I think that's why when I found Jedsy, I was like, shit, drones are obviously really cool anyway, right? So I was like, I'd love to speak to you and bring you on the podcast just to talk about drones and how cool they are and all of that sort of stuff. But then I think when I saw the use cases and the applications of what you guys are actually trying to do, I was like, I think that is a story that I want to push into the community, right? Because I think people should know about it. And I think especially the stuff around like healthcare and medication and like life support. I mean, all of those topics, I'm like, it's super interesting and really cool just on the basis of what it is, but then also it's real world impact for real world people, right? So yeah, I completely agree with what you said about, it's not just about, cool drones, but also it's doing some really good stuff for the world, right? So,
I mean, we're just quickly, in Malawi, we're very active, and to give you a perspective, they have 5 ambulances for over 1 million people, and
no way.
And the street conditions there are like horrible. The normal, daily business is if they have like a blood sample, there is a guy coming once per week picking that up. And the results, the turnover time is like almost 3 months sometimes. So there's actually so many, up to, I believe it's 38% of people are dying just because they don't get quality care in time. And building all this infrastructure in those third world countries, emerging countries, would take years and years and would cost billions. So the drone technology can absolutely leapfrog that side, and even make the quality in healthcare, bring it on a better standard than we have it here. And that will absolutely happen, right? And I think that there is a huge impact there. But in general, when we talk about efficiency and we talk about fast deliveries, that's a challenge worldwide. What the drone technology is for sure has a big play in the future.
So you say there's 5 ambulances for 1 million people in Malawi.
Yeah.
That is insane.
I mean, imagine every blood transfusion. So when somebody needs blood, they have to pick up the patient in like a so-called health center, and they get them to the main hospital just to make a blood transfusion. And because blood, to store blood, you need to kind of have lots of equipment. You need to do the blood matching and everything. But if you have the drone technology and you're able to deliver that within minutes and on demand, you can actually, deliver it to the health center. And so the ambulance is not needed anymore. So you don't need to get the patient, but they get the blood transfusion directly at the health center. And that is not only more cost efficient, but much faster, and will change, has a huge impact.
Yeah, for sure. Well, honestly, I think the applications of something like what you guys are building are fairly evident, right? It's like a pretty obvious thing that it's way better than what's currently available. I mean, maybe we can kind of just go back to the beginning of when you guys started Jedsy and that process of building that company, because you've obviously got a huge amount of experience within drones, right? But I mean, with Jedsy, you've got autonomous, perception-driven drones that are using computer vision and that kind of stuff, right, to land. I guess that process of building a company from the beginning to where you are now is obviously a super exciting story. So it'd be good to kind of dive into that. And I think, did you guys start when coronavirus kind of kicked off? Like, when did you guys launch the business?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're pretty unique in 2 ways. And that's, one is we're the only drone delivery who can land on the wall, right? Or on the window or on the balcony. And I think I always believe that is super critical. I mean, imagine a big hospital complex. You open the window, put the package in, and it's gone. So it's super fast. It is easy to use, and I think that's the future of how the medical delivery service needs to look like. So initially, that was the idea, right? And we had no idea if we could really land on the wall. So we actually we started with like a model airplane, just like a standard one, what we built and tried it, and it was like horrible. Then I said, okay, I have to program a new software for that, and so I did that, and we basically used a piece of wood. So it was wood structure with 5 motors, 5 propellers, and then we saw, okay, it flies, right? That was already that looked pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I have to send you the picture. I have to send you the picture how that looked like, and that had like a configuration with a flat thing, so you could really like touch on the on the wall, and then, we did our first successful landing, and then we said, yeah, it's actually possible. And so from there, we obviously started to make it fully autonomous. So we put the camera on a computer. We were using a Jedsy Xavier NX, and then, recognizing the landing station, and then doing really a precision land on that. So that took quite a while, and that we had a lot of headache and lots of day and nights spending on why the heck it didn't work initially. But yeah, I think we're now on a pretty good path, and we have pretty high reliability. And moving forward from here is like the challenge is to make it super reliable. Right? In aviation, you cannot have a system what once of 100 flight fails. It's not like an app, what you just publish and okay, there's some feedback of that and we put it in, and it really has to work. And I think that's really the big challenge, to make it work really extremely reliable, right? And a market like Africa, Malawi is obviously a good market where they are not so concerned about that, because the population density is obviously also very low, and the impact what they have is like huge. So they are not so critical as in Europe or USA, where obviously it has to be already extremely reliable.
So did you guys go through a lot of iterations in that process of, because autonomous landing, generally speaking, that's a difficult problem on its own, right? So how many iterations did you go through? You must have burnt through some cash when you was doing that process. So how was that?
Absolutely. I mean, we first used like a wing, which we just bought, with like a model airplane, what we then built together. And we learned a lot from there. We then changed the motor configuration. We then had also the impeller on. We're now on Mark 14, so we had like 14 iterations already. And probably, the Mark 18 version will be the fully, the one we will certify then. So there's still, iterations what we do. And we learned quite a lot, obviously, from every prototype. And obviously, I would have to show you how they look differently. And it's sometimes quite funny. But yeah, iterating fast is a very important element, I believe, in any hardware startup to really have the perfect product market fit also.
So I guess, where are you guys now then? Because you mentioned that version 18 will probably be the one that you take to market, right? But you're currently on version 14. So where are you, or probably a better question is, what's stopping you from releasing now? Like, what are the bottlenecks, or what are the things that you haven't got 100% right now? Or is it just kind of that fine tweaking to, as you say, because you're right, you can't get things in aviation wrong by 1%, right? That's a huge risk factor. So, I mean, is it just, tightening the bolts around the safety aspects, or what is it that's kind of holding you back now?
I mean, version 14, we have now 10 drones in Malawi, and they are operational, but they have like a smaller battery. They're limited in range. And so the big development what we have is now that we also have a custom battery, what is based on a standard battery size, which is then, we're suspecting that there will be a huge battery or lack of battery availability. And so having this standard size, I think, should reduce that risk of sourcing batteries in time. And so, yeah, that's kind of the development we're looking in, and having then the long range version is a few more iterations to have it perfect. And if you do the certification for one, and when I speak about certification, we're going for the FAA certification, then that's a huge task, right? So you have to do it, and I mean the drones are very similar now already. So the shape and everything is already like the same, and we're just testing different motor setups, different battery sizes, and to find the most efficient thing. What we then say, okay, this is how we want to certify it.
Yeah, it's I had no idea how big they were, because you don't have the perspective, right, when you look at them, just a picture of the drone. But then when you see it land on the back of the Tesla, you think, shit, it's actually quite big, right?
It's 2.4 meter wingspan, so not so small. But the wing is absolutely crucial. The wing is, I believe, drone delivery only makes sense with a wing, because you always have to travel, and traveling with a multicopter is just not efficient, and is actually, the limitations are obviously range a lot, and then if you even have a bit of headwind, then the range is even less. So it's I believe the future of drone delivery is definitely a design with a wing and not a multicopter.
So what is the range of these right now then?
Right now we have 30 kilometers of range with a pretty small battery, and we have 5 times bigger battery in the newer version, so we should reach the 100 kilometer of range then easily. And that's obviously mainly needed, for the markets like Africa, then, where you have a lot more long range applications.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was kind of going to be my next question, really. Like, how do you see Jedsy expanding, and what's the kind of like eventual vision, right? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of the packages that we're talking about now would be relatively small in size, I guess. I don't know what weight they're capable of carrying, but I'd imagine, like, this is what I think in my head, something like that sort of size, right? But what's the kind of vision for Jedsy then? Are you going to expand out and do like, much bigger drones that can, I don't know, pick people up and save people off the side of mountains and stuff like that? Or like what's the kind of end goal, I guess? Or what's the bigger vision around it?
No, I think revolutionizing the courier service is really something what is part of our vision. And I mean, the big vision is every building in the world will have a Jedsy mailbox at some point. And it will always be below the 3 kilogram. So we're not targeting anything heavier than that, because the certification process gets a lot more complicated. I think also efficiency goes down because the batteries are just not there yet, when it comes to energy density and so on. So all those taxi drones there are a few designs which definitely can work when you don't need that much energy. But also then, you still need a lot of energy, and after 500 charging cycles, you kind of need a new battery. And so the cost is actually pretty high if you then think about that, the bigger it gets, right? So if you have like a taxi drone with a $80,000 US dollar battery inside, and you have to change that after 500 flights, it becomes quite expensive. And I think that what people are really not seeing at the moment, that cost efficiency is obviously an important factor to be relevant on the market. And on those small sized drones, it's much more efficient because you don't need that high energy density on the batteries. And so it's like if you look outside and look what kind of birds are flying outside. There are only like the max is like 2 meters or something of
There's
birds
no
flying.
pterodactyls
So
anymore, right?
no, exactly, yeah. So it's kind of bionic tells us also quite a lot on what is efficient and what not.
So what do you do you think companies like Lilium, for example, are kind of destined to fail then?
I mean, Lilium has, I believe, huge challenges. I mean, they are using a super tiny impeller. I mean, the whole industry is moving to, even the airlines is moving to bigger sized engines or like turbofans because they're more efficient. And the amount of energy they need just to take off and land is like insane. I think it's like 2,500 kilowatt or even more. So this battery actually doesn't even exist yet, I believe, right? Which can deliver that amount of energy. And I mean, you have to take off, then you fly the range, and then you arrive with like 30% of battery level, and then you have to deliver that amount of energy again. That doesn't work.
Impossible. Yeah,
because
yeah.
So I mean, if you take, for example, Joby or Volocopter, I mean, those concepts which have a high, let's say, disk, because the disk, the more area you use to generate the downwash, the less power you need. So like a design like Joby needs significantly less power compared to like Lilium, right? And so the battery technology for like Joby or like Volocopter is already there, right? So they can actually do that. If they can do it cost efficiently, big question mark, because they still have to throw it away after 500, maybe 800 cycles. So that I'm not sure if the cost is then really better than a helicopter. So that's like the direct comparison. And then you have to make the question mark, is then the market really there, to so that's why I'm quite critical on the taxi drone side and huge aircraft with, I mean, also the amount of downwash they generate. That's much easier to handle on a little drone, and
sure.
it's like a 10 kilogram drone landing on the window is you don't need you need that mailbox and that's it, and the mailbox is like $100, so everything becomes much easier, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the focus of our company will always be below that 3 kilogram package size, because there it's where you can really make a difference, also efficiency wise.
Gotcha. And as you say, I think the safety aspect and I wouldn't, not in the aviation industry, right? But I'd imagine the process of being able to get that signed off from a safety aspect would be a lot easier, right? So like, who do you even talk to for that? Where do you go? What do you need to do? And what are the steps you need to kind of follow as a business to be able to kind of be certified from a safety standpoint?
Well, there are two big ones. There is EASA in Europe and FAA in the US. Those are the two main players on the market. Then obviously countries like Malawi, they have like their own set of rules, which are a lot simpler. And that makes it obviously also super attracting for us, because flying in circles, at our office doesn't make the product the best on the market. So going out there, delivering real things, it helps us a lot to make that product not only super reliable, but also, the best in terms of customer experience and ease to use. Yeah, I think we're pretty lucky. We have, I think, a very strong team. Also on that side, we have a few team members which are very experienced already in terms of certification, and they obviously did that already with on other companies like Matternet was already in a certification process, and then so there is already quite a lot of knowledge how to proceed on the certification side.
Yeah, cool. I mean, do you know the one question that keeps popping up in my mind is like, why is this not in the world right now? Because it kind of makes sense, right? And I think, like you were saying earlier about the use cases, especially around kind of like healthcare and being able to deliver medication or, blood and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that it's like, why are we not doing that currently? Why is this not a thing already? Mm-hmm. So is there like huge blockers or like what is it that's kind of holding us back from being able to utilize technology like this? Because obviously drones could be awesome in so many different areas, right? So is it kind of like a government thing? Is like what's kind of holding us back from being able to kind of fully utilize this sort of stuff?
Government is a huge influencer. Obviously, I think Amazon and Google started the certification process 2012.
Wow.
And they did a lot of groundwork with the regulator, so many back and forth. And finally, I think this year we will see the first type certificates coming out. And so it was a very long process on the regulatory side to really get everything sorted out, right? So that there is definitely one reason why we don't see it here. I think in Africa, and so that it's still a matter of cost efficiency. So right now, many operators need quite a lot of human resources to operate it. So, for example, if you need a person at takeoff, then you have a person at the landing zone, and then you have a person who basically kind of operates the drone and can take over in emergencies. You have like 3 people involved for one delivery, which then is especially in third world countries where they have very limited budget, already quite difficult, right? So that's why we make a big effort in getting decentralized, having all those mailboxes where one drone lands on the mailbox, recharges itself. So you don't need to handle the battery, you don't need to have like experienced people on the ground. And then you can basically go from there anywhere else. You don't have to fly back to the hub. And that's like cuts the cost also in half, because you only fly one distance, and then from there you fly completely somewhere else. And then, so you can do deliveries constantly. And yeah, that's probably a factor. So cost is a big factor, but also technology in the last few years, especially with the start of those smartphones and the MEMS, there was a huge step forward. And so now is really also the technology on a point where you can do those things, reliably.
Yeah. But I think but it seems as if there's going to be a distinct change in the next couple of years, really, in terms of how we kind of consume that technology, right? I can't believe that Amazon and was it Google, you said, put in for their regulations like in 2012. Shit, that is like, I had no idea that it took that kind of time to do something like that, but it kind of makes sense, I guess. So can you piggyback off of the work that they've already done then, I guess, because they've kind of set the precedent of where this technology could be used, and they've kind of already started that conversation, right? So are you semi piggybacking off of that work to be like, okay, cool, well, they're doing this kind of thing, but also this is other use cases that we could use it for, and this is how we kind of slot into that world? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, there is, if you take an aircraft certification, right? It is very clear. There is like single engines, there is multi-engine, there is like VFR, IFR, and all that things are absolutely in place. But there is nothing in place for like UAVs operated fully remotely. So they had to kind of rewrite the full regulation, how to make a type certificate for, a delivery drone. And they're still working on how to finally operate such a drone, right? And that is a huge process. And luckily there are companies like Google who have enough money to really, do it over and over again without dying. And that, I mean, that really makes it possible now for a startup like us to come in where everything is, look, that's the regulation you have to fulfill, and that's how you have to do it. I mean, if we would have to start negotiating with them, and it would take years and years, I mean, there's no chance we would survive that, right?
Mm.
It's a process.
Mm. Well, honestly, Herbert, I think I really hope you guys do it, because I think the thing that you're doing and the real world impact that you guys can have on people in less privileged countries or people that are less able, there's such real world positive impact that you can have on people and environments. I think that I really hope you guys nail it, and yeah, I'll be rooting for you from the sidelines, man. I guess if we fast forward, I don't know what your timeline is, so this might be either way out or really optimistic, but if we fast forward 10 years from now, what do you see the kind of aviation space looking like for drones, generally speaking, but also how Jedsy would kind of fall into that? How would you see that? What does the future look like for you?
I think in 10 years, especially in the medical area, probably every hospital, every laboratory, every doctor in the world might have or might be using drone technology. It will have a significant impact in our healthcare system, because time is a very critical element of how good the quality of healthcare is. So I think in 10 years that is possible. That's already quite a lot of drones. If you take that impact from a people's perspective, I believe they will not even notify a lot. That those drones, you can't even hear them once they are in forward flight, and then the landing is, it takes 10 seconds. So the overall emission in terms of noise is much lower than any car, right? So I think people fear a lot that, oh my God, there will be so much traffic in the air. But I think once it is really there, they probably notice, oh, it doesn't bother me at all. And yeah. I mean, still, obviously, I think what is super important also on our side is to really take care of privacy, 100%. So we're very picky on that. And also to make it the most reliable system then on the market. So, I mean, the probability already right now that somebody would die from a delivery drone is like super tiny. I always say a coconut is more dangerous than any drone because there are like 170 people per year or so dying because of a coconut falling on the head. And, there's nobody died yet because of a delivery drone, because the probability that somebody gets hit is already very, very small.
Mm.
And even if somebody gets hit, it's the probability that it's like completely fatal is even smaller. So winning in the lottery 10 times in a row is probably the same probability than dying from a delivery drone.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you'd have to be, like you say, you'd have to be very unlucky. And then I'd imagine the drone would have to come to like a dead stop and hit you like straight on for it to be able to kill you, right? I mean, if a 10 kilo...
Yeah, I mean, in our case, it's a foam wing, right? We originally had like a carbon fiber wing, but now it's a foam wing. It's like, I would say it's quite difficult to hurt somebody, significantly. I think, the amount we help the people and we have impact on the healthcare will be, I don't know, maybe a million times more than, adding a risk of somebody else getting hurt.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I completely agree. That percentage, the risk reward ratio there would just be vastly different, right? But yeah, honestly, Herbert, I really hope you guys do it, because I think the use case, what you guys are working on, and the potential impact is massive. So I guess if someone's listening, bearing in mind a lot of my network is very much focused around kind of perception and data science and ML and that kind of stuff, right? I mean, if someone's listening to this now and they want to kind of like, I don't know if there'd be any kind of collaborations that you would have, or any kind of introductions that you would need. But if anyone's listening to this now and they think, oh, I'd love to work with those guys or reach out to them, what would they need to do?
Basically, write me an email. It's on the website, Jedsy.com. You find also my contact details. And yeah, we're definitely open. I think perception is a big topic in our case. We want to make it more and more autonomous. So we do the autonomous landing, but obviously we also want to do object detection. So at some point, in case there is a crane or something built up, so the drone needs to identify that fully autonomously at some point. Right now, that's why we have a pilot, still there checking if anything changed. But that's kind of the way we want to move, right? And yeah, so definitely perception is a huge topic. And if people love drones, I think we would be a great place to work at. We have lots of home office. We have actually very good simulator. So everything what we do is first done on the simulator, and then there are like hundreds of different checks what can be done there. So many people can work remotely also to get it done, and then here at the headquarters we then test the new things once they passed on the simulator side. So yeah, constantly looking for good people, and always open to write me directly.
Awesome. I think you guys as well will have not easy, because the war for talent right now is difficult. Excuse me, no matter what company you work for or what positions you're looking for, generally speaking. But I think the good thing what you guys have got is you've got a really cool autonomous perception use case that isn't autonomous driving, right? And I mean, if you look at the Munich landscape of people that are working on perception, I'd say that probably over 80%, maybe even closer to 90% are working on some sort of autonomous driving software or stack or something, right? So I think you guys are definitely unique, and obviously impact is at the core of what you do. So I'm pretty sure you'll be fine, man. I get one final question, Herbert. What Jedsy? What does that name mean?
Well, Jedsy. If you take it, it's like a jet, right? But smaller, so it's Jedsy. So
It's kind of like a fun-sized jet.
That was like, yeah. And the .com was available, so that we thought that was a good name to start with.
Yeah, it's weird, like, those little things, they start off as a little bit of a joke in the beginning, right? But they're like, oh, it's a bit like Jedsy, and then it kind of sticks. You're like, hey, it's actually quite cool. But good, man. Herbert, well, look, firstly, thank you so much for your time, dude. It's honestly been such a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, again, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I really hope you guys do well, and I hope it takes off. Excuse the pun. But yeah, honestly, dude, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for your time, man.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And yeah, we're doing our best. We work, lots of night hours also right now to get that thing literally flying.
Yeah, good, man. Good.